hazard.
That's great.
And the slide kind of gets a little bit more into the weeds of that. If you'd like to go forward to the next slide, please. So yeah, this is kind of the step-by-step guide. Of course, the first step would be downloading the REVER app. You have to opt into the Barracuda program as it is still in beta. If you've got the Bluetooth communicator, then you can walk through the speech setup. There's various different things you can say, which we of course tell the rider about up front. And as I said before, if you don't have a Bluetooth communicator, we've kind of trimmed down the Waze interface and also added hazards that motorcyclists would be more concerned about, such as a weather hazard or even a pothole. Something that would just be a minor inconvenience in your could certainly upset a motorcycle and cause a crash. So it's important and different than ways to make sure that we're, hitting the hazards that motorcyclists need to be aware of.
So if you could just go to the next slide, go ahead. So unlike automobile drivers, motorcycle riders, as you know, are much more vulnerable to road hazards, potholes, inclement weather, slick roads that really pose immense danger to riders and basically increase the probability of accidents. So Barracuda allows people to report a hazard in real time, but also to receive a hazard as they're riding. So far within our database, and again, we're just in beta for both Android and on iOS users, we've got about 6,500 total users globally and about 3,000 hazards reported now. So our advantage here is that we're building and growing a large database of all of these hazards all over the world. And that's our plan.
Wonderful. Is that the last slide, Elaine?
Yep.
Great. I love what you guys are doing. We've talked about this a lot in the past. And I'm so glad when you agreed to participate in this forum. I want to know what's exciting you about bringing this technology into the industry?
So I think there's three things. I think, the database is what excites us the most. We'd love to be able to get cities, towns involved in this so that we can integrate some of their hazard database, transportation database into this place, so that the more hazards we have, the more user-generated and experiences become augmented and really increase safety for our riders. The ability to report hazards using voice, we think, is really critical because it's not as obtrusive to the rider. We think that's really exciting, and also the idea of exploring AR technologies so that eventually you could put on these smart glasses, which will provide you with an overlay of information that you can see immediately. We believe that will enhance the rider experience as well. And of course, the real-time nature of the hazards being reported, the fact that these are all geolocated, so you know beforehand or at the time, in real time, when these hazards are possibly going to affect you. Paul, did you have other comments about what you find exciting?
Yeah, I mean, REVER's really focused on planning a ride and finding good places to ride. And I think right now the Barracuda data on hazards is only available in the mobile app, but we do most of our planning on our website. So I'm excited for, as we get more and more hazards into the system, a rider, thinking about going to plan going on a new ride and checking out a new road, will be able to see, right on the map before they ever even get on the bike, a good idea of what kind of hazards might lay ahead on that ride.
Yeah, maybe it's a good idea to slow down going into this this sharp turn if there's a pothole there. Great. my next question, that leads itself pretty well to my next question. We're all in the data space, and when I do it in embedded hardware, we're collecting a lot of telemetry data, matching that up to GIS data that we're getting from the government, from the DOTs, to be able to create roadway criteria for unsafe roadways for motorcyclists and identifying those areas. And then the intention is to take that data back to roadways that will increase the survivability of a motorcycle crash, and it'll cost you X amount of dollars. I don't know that number yet, but I'd love to give it to them. But that is my next question. How can we use our data to improve roadway safety? And who do we share that data with to make it the most effective in the shortest time frame?
Yeah, I think this really falls into the vision of smart cities. If you're following that work, where everything is connected, where we have sensors all over the place and we can augment the communication, increase efficiency of the information provided to people living in those cities and moving around in cars and motorcycles and pedestrians. So we think that the data can be tied to local municipalities so that they can be fixing roads. They would understand where they should be allocating some of their resources better. We think that by making the mapping of these rides accessible to riders, they can really assess the safety issues on the roads. Are these roads that they want to ride on? How do they do more efficient planning of where they're going, and alternate routes when roads aren't safe? Paul, I don't know if you had any other comments there.
No other comments for me. I think that sums it up nicely.
We'll take audience questions at the end. I'm sorry, Paul. Could you repeat that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I said I think Elaine covered it perfectly.
Gotcha. And Elaine, you said working with municipalities and sharing this data to them. You guys have already worked with municipalities in the past, right? That you've created some of your database from, was it I believe it was Vegas, right?
That was a separate project on smart cities where we were working to augment some of their sensors that they've been working with. So separate from this, but that is one of our goals.
Which, I mean, that's a great segue to the next one. Where do motorcyclists fit into the smart roads that are being developed currently?
Is that a question for me, or are you opening that up to the audience?
Yeah, I'm opening that up to both you and Paul. I feel like there's a lot that can be done in terms of communications infrastructure, vehicle to vehicle talking systems.
Yeah, this was a comment that Alex, who couldn't be here, he apologizes profusely, but his point was that the V2X he felt was going to enable motorcycles to share their information with other vehicles. This whole notion of vehicle motorcycle to everything communication is really where things are headed, so that any entity that might be affected by the motorcycle or could affect the motorcycle itself will be made available. But the standard, at least according to Alex, is yet to be approved by the DoD. But we also have been doing some research with DSRC infrastructure and radios, and that's being supported in Japan through the V2X from Toyota. That's an example.
Paul.
I personally am excited for the possibilities that come with V2X as far as motorcycle integration and potentially even somehow integrating that into REVER with some type of Bluetooth connection. I haven't thought about it a ton as it's still kind of new tech, and of course Elaine was saying we haven't really settled on the standards for that yet. But it's something we're really excited about, and motorcycle technology. Exciting.
I'm sorry, you were breaking up there at the end. We've had this conversation.
I apologize. I'm at.
Apologies, Paul. I can't see your face, so I'm just winging it.
I'm really sorry. I am at Coda in the back of a semi. The connection is.
Yeah, we can't hear you very well, Paul.
Least.
Sorry, we can't hear you very well, Paul.
We'll move on. We'll see if Paul's connection will get any better. That's one of the conversations that we've had in our engineering team is how do we plan what that future roadway looks like in even 3-5 years. That meaning what chips do we put in to make sure that when autonomous vehicles are more prevalent on the roadways, that we can project the telemetry information from the motorcycle to those vehicles so that way they don't get hit. I'm not sure if what you guys' opinions are, but that's a good indication of the next question, which is, are we going to see autonomous motorcycles and why not?
Yeah, my personal opinion is I don't think so, but who knows? Maybe highly unlikely. Alex believes maybe 3-wheel configuration, as they're also categorized as motorcycles, but we don't foresee this for 2 wheels.
Paul, are you there? No, he's gone. All right. Well, it's just me and you, Elaine.
Okay.
I entirely agree with you. I don't think that an autonomous motorcycle, what's the point? Why take all the fun out of it? I said this to my team the other day. There will never be an autonomous motorcycle, and immediately one of them pulls up a video of some Korean company that made a bike that follows you around. And I was like, wow, that's very clever. A bike that is autonomous when you're not riding it. Super interesting. It's like a robot dog.
Right.
So the next question I have, we work a lot with the government and in our space and the DOTs. Do you think that the government will mandate any of the safety technologies that are coming out in the next few years? And if so, what do you think will make the list?
Just checking to see what Alex had written about that. He did foresee the mandate could be V2X equipment. However, a standard has not been declared between the DSRC and 5G solutions, and also the infrastructure has not been implemented yet. So he sees that as some of those obstacles towards standardization and mandates.
And both of those being communication equipments to build out the infrastructure across smart roadways, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. I will say, oh, there's Paul. Paul, you had something for us?
I'm sorry, I missed the question, guys. I apologize for my connection issues.
Will the government mandate any safety technologies in the next few years in the motorcycle space?
I personally can't see anything coming down the pike other than the V2X that I think Elaine was just mentioning. I don't know that automatic braking or things of that nature really have a place in motorcycles, at least for the foreseeable future.
Gotcha. Yeah, I will say one of the things that piques our interest as an e-call system. Automobiles sold in Europe were required to have an e-call system. E-call being like an OnStar system, and since then they've saved 3,000 lives that would have otherwise been lost, and seen a 15% reduction in life-altering injuries. So because of that, the EU is now fielding, or will be fielding. It was supposed to happen this year, but COVID has pushed that back. We'll be fielding e-call systems in motorcycles to include them off the production line, which I think is interesting. And as much as I love government mandates, I especially love them when they're not in my country and they force other people to buy my product.
Sure.
Let's see. Next question. What tech from other industries are we seeing entering the motorcycle space? I think that you've got a good leg up on the AR, VR space, Elaine.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly see AR as profoundly being used in all kinds of augmenting customer experiences in retail. We think it will have an impact in terms of riders, augmenting their experiences, connecting the world around them, sort of mixed reality around what they're seeing, what's ahead of them, information that they need at a glance. So we certainly see that as impacting and augmenting their experience, as long as it's done in the right way and providing a better experience than what they would normally have. But we see control coming out of the user themselves. So if they decide that's not what they want, they can easily turn it off and on, when they on demand.
Absolutely, Paul.
I could see kind of tracking technology potentially becoming more prevalent as far as insurance goes. I know some insurance companies do kind of like a accelerometer based, module you can put into your car that would affect your insurance premiums. And I could certainly see something like that coming down the pike for motorcyclists. I'm sure everyone here rides, and motorcycle insurance can be quite expensive on some of the faster models. So I could see that being a huge benefit to customers who aren't planning to, do unsafe things on their sport bikes on the road.
It's funny that you say that. That is something that we are actively working towards, but we're trying to tee the balance between sharing too much data with insurance companies that make our premiums go up, and sharing just enough to make our premiums go down. That has been a struggle amongst us, and especially, if you guys buy our e-call system, would you want your insurance premiums to go up just because of that? One of the things that we're trying to do is get them to underwrite the device totally, so that way you pay nothing, and you'd only get benefits to your insurance. I don't want premiums going up because of that. And in that,
Exactly.
we are. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We are implementing, since we're collecting this telemetry data, and we've got a huge stock of how motorcycles move through the world, how specific motorcycles, specific styles, cruisers, sport bikes, those kinds move. We have started working on a behavioral analysis model to begin taking all that data and say, okay, these are indicators of safe riding. These are indicators of unsafe riding. And how do we begin to retrain those unsafe behaviors out of those riders? And I think what you talked about, Elaine, the method of delivery, that being either to a set of AR goggles or through the Bluetooth headset. That's where we want to be. We love that because I don't want anybody having to look at their phone saying, hey, you went too fast in that turn, or
Right.
Hey, slow down coming over that hill, which, by the way, huge indicators of a crash about to happen. So slow down.
Yeah, it's about coming up with the experience design system that maybe nudges the rider a little bit, warning them in terms of whether they're leaning or their acceleration's too fast, but doesn't interfere with the ride themselves, that's happening in real time. And so the question is, what kind of design affordances can we deliver on these great experiences that really help and don't interfere?
And doing that without feeling preachy.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. The other issue is privacy. So in terms of how much a rider wants to provide and enable that kind of information, they don't want to feel tracked. They don't want to feel like their privacy is in any violation. So that's it. All of these things we see as opt-in opportunities.
Absolutely, it is something that we think about often, is the data privacy of our customers. And of everyone that we've surveyed, nobody wants to give it up. Nobody wants their data out there, and it's something that we try to honor.
Yeah, in terms of data, we believe that people own their own data. It's a commodity, and they have the right to release it when they want to. So it's the responsibility of the individual.
Absolutely, we do have we have opt-in terms as well, which I believe, Paul, that's what you guys do with REVER as well, right?
Sorry, say that again.
You have opt-in terms for releasing private data?
Yes, certainly have opt-in terms for private data. We've also, been doing some other privacy-related features, such as privacy zones, so a rider can set a boundary around their house or wherever it may be, and then in their feed, where other riders can look at their rides, those tracks are obscured, just to make sure we have riders that don't want people to know where their house is, even though they're friends with them on the app.
Oh, wow, that's something I didn't really think about in a GPS based community.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that
Yeah,
you brought that up.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. It was something that our riders were asking for, and yeah, I mean, it makes complete sense. Like, if I have a garage full of motorcycles, I don't necessarily want to show everyone where it is.
Awesome. I have two more questions, and then we'll start taking questions from the audience and the chat. What factors will drive pricing in the safety technology space in the next few years?
Well,
Certainly. Go ahead, Elaine.
no, go ahead. I was going to just say gas prices seem to be a huge trigger. Go ahead.
So what I would mention, of course, is the chip shortage that we're seeing. Hopefully that resolves itself sometime in the very near future. But all of this technology that we'd love to have on motorcycles, of course, takes chips, and I think as those continue to increase in price, using those to leverage for safety is going to become more expensive, of course.
Absolutely. I've gotten really lucky. When I started building our hardware device, I set out to make sure that it was entirely made in the US. And because of that, it did make the device initially more expensive to produce, but we've seen a lot sturdier supply chain than competitors using parts out of China, Thailand, or Taiwan. And even the Nordic countries. Yeah,
we were actually working on a hardware project, and that was one of the biggest issues is finding getting enough chips to build it.
And that was R-Link?
No, sorry, that was a hardware project. No, sorry, that was a hardware project that we were working on.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, well, last question, and this is something that's been on the top of my mind because the customers that keep coming to me are all in the e-motorcycle space. And I'd like to know, what do you guys think about e-motorcycles? Do you think they'll see increased sales in the next few years, and will that adoption go in lockstep with EV adoption?
Yeah, I think just like electric bikes, we're seeing, it's all dependent on the infrastructure that supports it, the backbone, to be able to quickly charge the batteries. We see this as, as the battery technology is advancing, we think that the demand is there, and especially since as I mentioned earlier, the future gas prices and current gas prices are a real trigger for looking for alternative transportation modalities. So we we think this is an area of growth.
I personally think that we could see e-motorcycles pick up a little bit quicker than, EVs in general. I think there's less range anxiety with a motorcycle. There's many folks that are just going out for an hour or two ride, and they're not trying to, drive across the country on their motorcycle all that often. Also, I think the lighter weight of batteries makes it's possible to swap a battery for, some kind of an off-road bike if you were on a motocross track or something like that. I've read something about there's somewhere in Asia, they're testing scooters with replaceable batteries and an actual hub you can go to and switch your battery out, just like you were getting a tank of gas, which I think is an opportunity that cars don't have.
Yeah, it's definitely something we're excited about. One of our customers is even is testing one of their e-dirt bikes with the Navy with us later in May this year. We're very excited about that. I'd love to see that kind of adoption into the government at large. The DoD, the Bureau of Land Management, the Parks and Wildlife are the biggest acquirers of motorcycles, dirt bikes, and ATVs. And to see some of that going green will be hugely beneficial for my industry. Okay, well, that concludes all the questions that I had lined up for this panel. I'd love to source some questions from the audience and the chat. You got one?
Has the heads-up display been tested by riders? What feedback have you received?
Did you guys hear that?
So, yeah, it has been tested. Yeah, can you?
Do
you want me to take that?
Here as well, but yeah, you're good.
Yes, we've done some small studies, usability studies. Some of this work has been done with a company, a partner of ours out in Israel. It's just preliminary. But we have done a lot of other work with VR displays and on other projects at Charles River. So we have a pretty good understanding of the types of user experiences that work for mixed reality situations.
Yes.
Has there been any development with the product for on-road to off-road use?
Has there been any development with the product for on-road to off-road use? Is that to me or is that to Elaine?
To anybody with the program that's making, you're making great leaps and bounds with the, pothole discovery and that kind of thing. But when you're planning a group of motorcyclists, some of us ride on and off-road.
Absolutely.
Can we get from point A to point B and click a button that says, I want to go as quickly as possible? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just giving me high five.
Paul, the question is, are your routes, and this is to you as well, Elaine, how are we managing the on-road to off-road riders, and what does that look like in terms of route planning? Can we choose routes that are specifically more fun to ride versus the highway? And then what about safety, pothole detection in that space? I assume that all of our products are, that's a question towards all of our products.
It's a question for all the products. Part of it, the safety for the asphalt concrete.
Right.
As an off-road person, you don't care about potholes. But as far as route planning goes.
Yeah, so I would say in the first version,
Possible, and can I have some off-road use?
Yeah, I think our goal is to be able to provide hazards anywhere. They're geolocated, so you should be able to track all of that activity. I think for the first version, we're sticking to roads. But I think the idea is you'd be able to apply it to trails, off-roads, any point. Paul, did you have any insights there?
I couldn't clearly hear the conversation on that side, but I think, we almost have to tweak the type of hazards that you could report for off-road use. You know, I mean, a pothole
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense out on a trail, but a downed tree around a turn when you're going, you know, 50 miles an hour could be a really big deal. So like Elaine said, we haven't really, you know, done the off-road version as part of this. But I do think it could be beneficial for some riders in some circumstances. Of course, off-road, you're always a little bit more prepared for, you know, unforeseen hazards as opposed to on-road. But I do think there's certainly opportunity there.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I'll say in our product, we specifically use the Iridium satellite network because we knew that there's a huge potential for riders to be leaving the roadways or out of cell service. And we didn't want there to ever be a situation where a rider is left out on the roadway and we're not able to locate him or well off the roadway. One of the reasons that we also wanted to be able to move into the ATV space, get out there on the trails. Our device works globally and even in the most remote locations, and that's to provide safety even to those locations. Yes, sir.
I've got a question. As far as, is this real time currently? And would it be, do you plan in the foreseen future where there will be rider user interability to say that, you know, I'm riding down the road, I see this hazard, I can report it, then it gets queued into your database in real time?
Yeah, right now it is all in real time. So your hazards are reported and uploaded into the database so that they're available to be reported for the next rider who comes around.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
My question is more about how does it get reported? I'm trying to imagine how I would like to report a pothole while I'm working and trying to miss it, you know, and have
So-
location.
So there's a couple of ways. One can be used by speech. So you'd say something like weather hazard. So you'd first say REVER because that we're using that brand, and then you'd say weather hazard, and it would automatically know exactly where you are, and it would upload that weather hazard to that point. The other way riders are doing it now is after when they finish their ride, they're going back and plotting and uploading a hazard that they remember they had seen. So what we don't want is anybody trying to do that while they're riding, right? So that's why we think speech right now is critical.
Yeah, absolutely. Whatever keeps your hands on the handlebars. That's
Right, and your eyes looking out.
Yes, sir. Sir.
My question would be for Paul on the, kind of in line with the other gentleman, on the off-road. Does your system already have set up for different types of terrain? The reason I'm asking this is ADV riders is a growing segment, and not everybody's capable of handling digging at gravel or 3D gravel or deep sand or deep mud. But the road may take them that way. So is there a way to identify these levels of difficulty so the rider can get 3/4 of the way what they're going and not trying to come all the way back to their an area that they are not skilled in?
Paul, were you able to hear that?
No, can someone repeat that question for me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Do you
the
have any
question-
terrain descriptions off-road so that riders who are maybe less skilled will understand that there's certain types of terrains that they shouldn't want to enter into?
So currently we don't have that type of data like live on the map, but a lot of our kind of off-road type of content has a brief description, and we certainly will go out of our way to educate riders on the level of difficulty, and especially on trails where they could potentially get, 3/4 of the way up the mountain, and then, it gets really sketchy and they could be in trouble. So we do leverage the technology we have to inform riders, but right now we don't have that kind of, real time, like on the map level of difficulty visibility.
Well,
Right, great point.
But that's one of the things that we are working on as well in the off-road space. Since we're using our very, very specific telematics, and also monitoring since we're in EVs right now, or electric motorcycles, it gives us a lot more leeway in terms of how the motorcycle is reacting, how the bike's reacting, and then how the device is moving through time and space. So that's letting us get an indication of what what the terrain is, and then being able to plot that out over a map. Say, hey, this went from smooth road onto a little rocky road onto, oh wow, our back tire sank down a little bit and now we're in gravel. That's what we're looking at and building out. Yep, another one.
I have a question for you specifically then. So the crash protection, ADV riders hold at the ballgame, we try to keep our troop wheels on the ground on the street, but it's not a matter of when or if that you are going to go down and how long you got to stay there before the alarm goes off. There's been times that I felt the bike and just sat there and was disengaged, tired, and laid there for 30 minutes. I just got there, I don't pick up the bike.
Yeah,
Or goes to the spot, but I hit the button when I need to.
our lead engineer is also an ADV rider. So that's where all of our suggestions in this space are coming from. And so our lead time right now is 2 minutes to dispatch. And that's we're using Garmin's International Emergency Response Coordination Center, and they're providing all of that. So it's all about how long the bike lays there before the signal goes up, and then 2 minutes from then you'll receive a call, and then if you're okay, then you don't need the dispatch. One of the things we're working on with Garmin is they're trying to let us provide their search and rescue insurance, meaning for an additional $1 a month, you can have up to $50,000 of coverage if you are ever life flighted or have to take an ambulance. Because healthcare costs in this country are skyrocketing, and nobody, you don't want to be in a situation where you need help but can't afford it. So including that into our package makes that a lot easier, even in the event that it is a life flight situation. Yes, sir.
Being a Garmin user, can you differentiate your service between Garmin and yourself?
Between being a Garmin user in terms of,
As far as the package, because I do use that.
you have their package already, then you don't need to purchase it from us.
Okay.
That's another question. Oh, rapid. One more question.
So you said that if there's a hazard on the road, it gets reported to DOT, correct? Like if you get a pothole in the road or something, does it not get reported to DOT or to the local DOT?
That's what.
No, it does. It's not getting reported to the DOT. It's getting reported into our database. We would like to be able to work with local departments of transportation so that we could coordinate that kind of information. So that, they can decide whether they're going to apply resources to go fix those particular hazards, or at least be notified.
Okay, then my second part to that question is, what steps are you guys going to take to make that be able to be a reality?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what steps are we taking to?
Take to make it available to the DOT?
So we're reaching out to them. That's the first step, is to see whether they have data currently that we could publicly available data that we could incorporate to broaden the number of hazards that we have. So setting up meetings with individual cities is what we're beginning to do. We just want to get through our beta testing to make sure that the performance of the app is working really well before we do that. But that's what we're trying to do. So if you have ideas, I'd love to hear them.
And there's plenty of validation that has to go into that before the DOT will pick it up in the first place into the grid system. So it would take, say that they get to scale and they're able to collect 100,000 potholes in the U.S. It would still take another year or two to get it actually through the DOT's validation process.
Yeah, we were hoping they would move towards some sort of central repository, but that doesn't seem to be where we're going.
Okay, well, that is our time here. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, Elaine and Paul. And thank you to TTI, to Look, Learn, Live, to MSF, to everyone that is sponsoring this event. And you guys have a good day. I'll be around.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you all so much. Bye.
Thank you.
As far as